Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a Easter special video, and actually it's going to be a continuation of our presentation video from my birthday video. I got a lot of fantastic feedback from that video. A lot of people like the idea of doing a presentation video where we don't just show the bottle, which I'm known to just reach back, grab a bottle, show the bottle. The boxes are usually all up in the attic. So for those of you who are stumbling into this and you didn't know what the first presentation series was about, basically I went up into my attic and I pulled down many of the vintage boxes. I think there's still actually another box of vintage boxes somewhere that I did not locate yet. So there may be more boxes still to come. But what I did is I pulled down a lot of the boxes that I thought were interesting, like the vintage ones with the short ingredient lists and stuff like that, that you don't just see very often on my channel, if ever, because many a times they are put away. And so I figured this would be a great opportunity because I'm thinking about taking them all out and putting them back so I can just reach back and grab the bottles again. Fussing with the boxes is kind of a beating. And I have to slide the door open because the boxes are kind of on the side. And so I'm just thinking about putting them, back up there eventually anyways. But I figured this would be a good opportunity to go through some of these with you guys, show you guys the boxes, the full presentation, just talk about some fragrances, ramble, if you will, which is one of my favorite things to do on this channel. So first of all, happy Easter to everyone who celebrates Easter. I hope you have your day, filled with chocolate bunnies, and I hope the Easter bunny is great to your kids if you celebrate Easter. And actually, we are going to a crawfish boil. Don't ask me why. We did the Easter thing yesterday, but today it's a crawfish boil with friends, so that should be a very Cajun Easter for me, and I do love some crawfish, so it's going to be a good time. So after this video, that's where I'm going, but I figured this will be a great opportunity to talk shop on some perfume. So let's get started with scent of the day, which if you watched my Houston Perfume Planet haul video that I uploaded from a little over a week ago or so, I went into a kind of a perfume shop, which I never get to do. All of my fragrances purchases are done online. So I really enjoyed going into the shop and just kind of chatting with the owner, and we spent over an hour just talking, perfume. And he had some pretty interesting vintages, and I bought a few, and this was one of them actually. And I got it at a better price than what I see being offered on eBay. There's a lot of these bottles that are between $125 and $200 online, and I got this at a little bit under $100. And this is a fragrance from the house of Jessica McClintock, and this is their only masculine fragrance they've ever tried to make. I don't know if the house is still in business or what. I know nothing about the house, but all the other fragrances they've made are for women. And it looks like their last attempt at making a fragrance was 2013, so 10 years ago. But they don't have very many, and they have big spaces between their fragrances, so I'm not sure. But this is discontinued, and this is a fantastic fragrance. It is called Scott McClintock for Men. And sorry, I didn't get the alcohol and rub the sticker off completely, but I will. And it's got this kind of pattern you can see right here, and you can see the short ingredient list. Someone mentioned that you don't see very many fragrances nowadays that say benzophenone 2. So you can tell this is an older bottle from the shorter ingredient list. And you know what? It smells like a vintage fragrance. Even though it came out in 1992, it smells vintage to my nose. This could easily be an 80s fragrance. There is a great review of this by The Scented Devil on Base Notes if you want to go read his thoughts on this. There are some very interesting notes in this too. So there's citruses and florals, but there's also this ambery hard cider note, which makes it very unique. I don't think I have a fragrance with a hard cider note. I don't think I've ever smelled a fragrance with a hard cider note. But basically, what it comes across as is it comes across as smelling like a animalic barbershop fragrance, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. But there's this animalic barbershop with this musky, mossy, vanillic base and a beautiful sandalwood dry down. I'm wearing it today as my scent of the day for the very first time. I have sprayed it on and worn it to bed a couple times, but this is the first full wear. And I can tell you, even though it opens up really big, and he's exactly right, there's a lot of like civet and these sort of animalic materials, and it smells like a huge fragrance when you first spray. It really does kind of dry down into something eminently more wearable. And the one thing I will say is that if you read the Scented Devil's review, you'll notice that he compares this to this, which I actually got a decant from my buddy Sense of South Jersey, Keelan. He sent me a very generous decant of Dana's Canoe, and I do not like this. This is a very, very hard fragrance for me to wear. I've worn this to bed a couple times too, and I'll do a video on it, but it's not going to be a very kind review of Dana's Canoe. Now, one thing I will say is I have no clue what version this is. I don't know if this is the newer version, the vintage version. I have no idea. But I am not a fan of Canoe. I do not like that vanillic thing that they've got going on in the base. It really puts me off. And, you know, even though I have nothing against women wearing feminine targeted fragrances, that comes off as very old lady-ish to me. Canoe does. Scott McClintock for Men does the exact opposite. It basically comes across as very masculine, even though it may share some of the same notes. The way that they executed it here, I think is brilliant. And the top of the bottle has that same sort of pattern as the box. You can kind of see right there. Kind of a cool little touch. This is only a 50 ml bottle. Apparently, the 100 ml bottles are almost impossible to find. But I'm very lucky I stumbled across this. And in fact, this might be the find of the visit to Perfume Planet as far as I'm concerned. So, Scott McClintock for Men. If this sounds interesting to you, I would say check it out. And it comes with this, look at the way they used to do back in the day. I love these little inserts. I wish houses still did this. There's a little blurb on the fragrance. At last, a fragrance as intriguing as the man who wears it. Scott McClintock for Men captures the renaissance of the contemporary man in a rich, full-bodied, masculine scent, charismatic to the core. Created for the dreamer, the doer, Scott McClintock blends the bravado of a man with the bravissimo of who he dares to be, a man of substance and style. Bravo for that, indeed. What a write-up. I wish they did write-ups like that today, instead of the BS write-ups they do today that try to appeal to every common denominator, you know. I love the write-up. Fantastic stuff. I love vintage ads. I love vintage write-ups, and very happy to have this. So what a find. Scott McClintock for Men. So, first one on the list. Second one on the list is one that I've shown many times before, but I hardly ever show the box because it's always just the bottle. So here is the box. This is the 30 ml box. I also recently showed a 50 ml box on the channel because I just got a 50 ml backup. And this is the great Balenciaga Pour Homme. And actually, if you love advertisements, I would urge you to go to Fragrantica, type in Balenciaga, and look at the advertisements in that article that was written. There was an article written about Balenciaga Pour Homme very recently, and it's titled The Power of Dreams. And they show some of the advertisements, and in the advertisements, for example, one of them is a man sitting on a rock, very well dressed, you know, in like a suit, nice shoes. He's kind of sitting at the coastline of water. And this right here blends into the water. And so this kind of marbly, this sort of, you know, turquoise marbly cap that they made blends into the water. And so if you just saw that advertisement, you would probably think this could be an aquatic. I mean, it is 1990. And this is years after Aramis New West came out, which was a take on aquatics. But then you keep scrolling down and you look at the next advertisement, and it's the bottle up against the background of like a sky, like a cloudy sort of sky. And this blends into the sky beautifully. And it says, "The Power of Dreams" is the headline. Beautiful advertisement. And, you know, I love the old ads for Balenciaga Pour Homme. The conversation about oud being in this, I don't think will ever go away. There was a, you can find it on YouTube even. There was a gentleman who is like a fragrance historian who did he did a speech at one of the big fragrance conferences within the last decade or so. And he basically said that this was the first fragrance to have oud oil in the base. And it's kind of one of those conversations that's never going to go away because it's not listed in the official note listing. I actually have a tester bottle with the notes listed. There is no oud listed, but I wouldn't be surprised, let's say it that way, if there was a little bit of oud, because one thing, Thomas from the Early Greek channel mentions this, and I completely agree with him. He said, have you ever noticed how stable all of the Balenciaga Pour Homme batches are like? And I thought, that's an interesting take, because he's right. I don't think I've ever smelled a Balenciaga Pour Homme bottle, and I've got 3 now. I've got the 30 mil, the 50 mil, and the 100 mil. I don't think I've ever smelled a Balenciaga Pour Homme bottle that smells off, that smells turned, that smells different. They all smell so close to each other. And, you know, I think this only ran for about 5 years and then it was discontinued. I don't think this ran very long. I think it definitely was discontinued before the year 2000. And so yes, one of my favorite fragrances of all time. One of the greatest masculines of all time. And I love the advertisement, the packaging, everything about it just screams class. Glad to have 3. I've got the full family portrait, basically. The 30 mil without the built-in sprayer, the 50 mil with the built-in sprayer, and then the 100 mil with the built-in sprayer. But yes, Balenciaga Pour Homme, number 2 on the list, done by the great Gerard Anthony. And you can see kind of the short ingredient list right there on the back. That's what every fragrance lover loves to see. Alcohol, parfum. That's it. You wanted to know what was in it? Alcohol, parfum. Staying with Balenciaga. This is a fragrance that gets a lot of talk by me. I've grown to love it more and more. This is one that's really kind of shot up the ranks for me. When I first smelled it, I thought, you know what? This is Gerard Anthony's attempt at like a designer. There's very little here to get excited about. It's wearable. It's good. I've heard people make reference to Givenchy Pie, which I don't own, although I'm looking for a bottle. But I don't know how great this is. This might be one of the less exciting Gerard Anthony perfumes. This is also a Gerard Anthony. And then the more I kind of wore it, the more the fragrance opened up to me, the more I understood what this is all about. And this is called Cristobal Pour Homme by Balenciaga. And this actually does not have the short ingredient list. It came out in the year 2000, so right around the time when you would start to see these longer ingredient lists. I don't know how old this bottle is. Honestly, I don't care. If you can find a bottle of this, go for it. I don't know if there's very many versions of this either, because I don't think this sold very well either. So it came out in the year 2000, and Balenciaga's Cristobal, you've seen me show this bottle many a times. I'm so glad to have the 100 mil. But it's white pepper, coffee, mugwort, and tea, with sandalwood, coriander, geranium, and nutmeg in the heart, with amber, benzoin, tobacco, and vanilla. And I think it's maybe that benzoiny, ambery, vanillic thing that makes this feel very designer-ish. Although the more you wear it, the more you will pick up on these little intricacies. Balenciaga's Cristobal Pour Homme has these beautiful little tobacco nuances, these beautiful little coffee nuances. And whenever I was doing my live stream on Friday a couple days ago with John Biebel, the owner and perfumer of the house of January Scent Project, he mentioned just how hard it is to use coffee in a perfume because it almost acts like an anchor. It just drags everything down. It's a heavy note. And the coffee note here doesn't feel that way. It actually feels like a easy to, you know, kind of like more transparent top note coffee note with tea. And so there's coffee and tea. And that combination is very rare. Usually you'll find a tea fragrance, you'll find a coffee fragrance, but finding a coffee with tea, with kind of this mugwort artemisia in the top, which hints back to kind of the early 90s, late 80s. So even though this feels more modern, it feels more designer-ish, there are little touches for you to find if you're interested in looking and really paying attention. So Cristobal Pour Homme, if you can find this, I would say try to get a sample. I think it's full bottle worthy. But But yeah, for the true vintage, you know, the people who say perfume died in 1993, 1994, and that's it, they may not care for this one as much, but I have definitely acquired a love for Cristobal pour Homme. Okay, let's talk about one of the greatest masculine lines that YSL has ever put out, the Jazz line. So this is a fragrance that you guys know I love. I have 3 backups of Jazz. The original, it's my favorite from the line. And let me show you the bottle. This is the 50 ml bottle for YSL Jazz, the original piano key bottle, if you will. And you can see kind of the short ingredient list there. Alcohol and fragrance. I love that. And there's the bottom. They stamped kind of the batch code into the box. So this is the original Jazz from 1998. It's my favorite of the bunch because it has that, you know, spicy amber fougere is how I would describe it. It's an amber fougere. Pierre Cardin's Pour Monsieur, which I showed in the birthday version of my fragrance presentation video. Pierre Cardin's Pour Monsieur is the one that kind of blazed the trail for these amber fougeres, and then everything kind of followed suit. So this is nutmeg, anise, cardamom, coriander, basil, lavender, beautiful lavender, tarragon, bergamot, cinnamon, jasmine, geranium, iris, carnation, oak moss, sandalwood, leather, tobacco, cedar, musk, tonka bean, and amber. And I absolutely love this stuff. It's in the same kind of DNA for me as something like, you know, whenever I wear fragrances like Zeno, or whenever I wear fragrances like Heritage by Guerlain, or Escada pour Homme, I always kind of lump them in this category. And these are just, for me, pure loves. I mean, I feel so at home wearing these. I feel so comfortable. I really feel like I'm wearing something like I should be wearing. You know, you ever wear a fragrance and you're like, you know, this one, it's nice, but it's really not for me. Or I get a lot of that when I'm testing new things. Especially now as the collection has grown, I kind of want to focus on, like yesterday I wore Luban's Upper 10, which I know Chris from Scentland absolutely loves, and that's the reason I bought it. But it's, honestly, I don't think it's for me. I would consider even selling that, but I want to do a video on it first. But it's, you know, it's kind of, and actually my brother-in-law gave me a compliment on it. And, you know, I just don't care about stuff like that. It's like, I wouldn't keep a fragrance because other people like it if I don't necessarily love it. And that one just isn't the type of leather that I like. It's too peachy and, you know, hazy, vanillic thing going on, suedey. And so this is the kind of stuff I want to wear. The stuff I mentioned that's kind of bunched into this DNA. This Escada pour Homme, Heritage, you know, Zeno. Even that Nino Cerruti Fair Play almost feels like a precursor to Jazz to me. And I love this DNA. It's just, there's just something about this amber fougere, the woodiness, the warmth of the amber with that, you know, spicy opening. It's amazing. And these also came with books. This is how YSL used to do it back in the day. Awesome stuff. They used to tell you all about their different products. The deodorant sticks, the shampoos, they had everything. I mean, they had the whole product line. And shaving foams, shaving cream, aftershaves, the breakdown of the Eau de Toilette's pretty funny. It says, a new presentation for traveling. Instruction, press the button 3 or 4 times when using for the first time. Okay, good to know. And the button, it's a little built-in sprayer, which I love these built-in sprayers. So I am just stoked to have, I'm set on YSL Jazz for life, it feels like. Now, there was a couple different flankers. So one flanker, and probably the best flanker of the bunch, is this. The next one, which came out in 1993. So Jazz came out in 1988. And then Jazz Prestige came out in 1993, and you can see how they kind of changed the box up a little bit. They stayed with the piano keys, but we've got a silver key now instead of black. And, you know, they kept the Jazz writing and all that good stuff. But what's interesting about this one, and one thing that many Mysore Sandalwood lovers point out, is actually if you look on the back, of where did I see this? Ah, here it is. Yeah, so if you look on the back and you look at the base, you'll notice that it actually lists Mysore Sandalwood as one of the note listings. And sometimes that gets kind of the Mysore Sandalwood lovers in a tizzy about this scent. So prices on this one can really go through the roof. I personally prefer the original Jazz, but I think Prestige is a very good runner-up for me. It's very similar to something like, if you've ever smelled Jean-Louis Vermeil for men. Very underrated fragrance that you can still find for 10 to 20 bucks, I think, online. There's a little bit of that DNA in here, because what they did to make this, to make Prestige Prestige, is they added a little bit of playfulness. So you can see the bottle is see-through now. This is a Parfums Corp version. You can see Parfums Corp right there. And so Jazz Prestige, they kept kind of the DNA of Jazz intact, but they added a few things. So they added anise. They added fruity notes. They kept the anise and the lavender and the coriander and all that stuff, but they added this fruitiness to the top. And the fruitiness blends with this sort of gingery freshness that wasn't there in the original Jazz. And so it kind of makes it a more playful, easier to wear flanker, if you will. And there is a little bit of, I think, castoreum in the base, just a touch, with that oak moss, amber, patchouli, benzoin, leather, sandalwood base. They've removed the tobacco. So they removed the tobacco. There's no tobacco like in the base of Jazz. But you will get a little bit of this animalic castoreum in the base that makes sure you know it's still a vintage fragrance from 1993, right before the aquatic wave came along and just washed everything like this away. And if you were going to buy one flanker of Jazz, this is the one I would tell you to go for. Jazz Prestige. And we don't know who the perfumer is, I don't think. At least it's not listed on Parfumo. So I don't know who the perfumer is of this. But they did very good work. The perfumer for Jazz is Jean-Francois Lati. So then Pierre Bourdon came in 1998 and made what I think is the weakest flanker of Jazz. It's a good fragrance. It's great to wear in the summer. Like when it's 100 degrees plus in Texas, I could easily, throw 10 sprays on of this and not even think about it. It goes beautifully in the heat. It's just not the kind of thing that rocks my boat. This is Live Jazz. So Live Jazz is the third and final flanker to the Jazz series. And so this is a 50 ml. This is a Sanofi Beauty ink. So we've moved on from Parfums Corp. This came out in 1998. And Live Jazz is minty, citrusy. You can see it no longer has the built-in spray. Actually, Jazz Prestige didn't have the built-in sprayer either, but the original Jazz bottles did. So Live Jazz looks like this. And so it's a minty, grapefruity, citrusy, lemony, easy to wear flanker, really is what it turned into. There are some interesting facets about this. So for example, you get a little bit of this rhubarb leaf, this reedy rhubarb leaf with cedar and amber and vanilla and coriander in the base. But this has completely kind of lost the Jazz DNA for me. It's a fresh 90s fragrance is what it really turned into. Dumb Reach fragrance for the heat is really what it is. It still has the short ingredient list, at least my box does. I don't know if they made these, in earlier, on where they do have some with the longer ingredient lists. But Anuj found me this, I believe. And it is quite nice, but definitely don't pay hundreds for this. It's just not worth it. It's the fresh, easy to wear Jazz, which is not my thing. So yes, Live Jazz is the third and final flanker. Okay, moving on to an Azzaro fragrance, and this is called Acteur. Now this is a very interesting perfume. You can see the short ingredient list there, alcohol and fragrance, and you can see Loris Azzaro as the name, the full name of the house, not just Azzaro. And this is a little 25 mil. Honestly, I probably should have bought 2 of these. But I'm glad to have what I have. You have to be thankful for what you have, and I do have so much. This is Acteur, and you can see I probably only have about 18 mils left, 18 to 20 mils left. So this is 1989. This came out. Maurice Morin is the perfumer here, and Acteur is one of my favorite rose fragrances of all time. It's kind of like this spicy masculine rose, if you will. So there's calamus, there's cardamom, there's nutmeg, there's bergamot, there's rose, caraway, cedarwood, jasmine, oak moss, leather, amber, and musk. But one of the greatest masculine roses I think ever made. I would put this up there with Aramis 900 and imagine that kind of work. But this came out in 1989, and Aramis 900 came out in the early 70s. And so it's a very interesting fragrance, very, very dark, dripping, wet rose type of feel. Spicy, you know, very spicy. I like this. I like this a lot. Do I want to reach for a rose fragrance all the time? No, but when I do, this is definitely one that kind of comes into contention. And I think this is still a fragrance that you can find at a respectable price if you're a vintage lover. I don't think this got very much love from the fragrance community. I've heard Fragrance Matt talk about this one before, but very few, very little love Acteur gets. So yes, put that on the list if you're kind of looking for a cheap fragrance vintage to hunt down. Okay, speaking of cheaper vintages to hunt down, I got this for like 40 bucks, and I don't know what it is now, but this is worth triple that, I think, for what fragrances are going for nowadays. This is Gianfranco Ferre, either Homme, or if you flip it over, 4-man. So Gianfranco Ferre 4-man, and you can see the, where is the ingredient list here? It's on the side. There you go. There's kind of the short ingredient list. Ethyl alcohol, GFF fragrance, demineralized water, and benzophenone 2. Which is the same thing I mentioned on the Scott McClintock for men. So Gianfranco Ferre 4-man is kind of this spicy, leathery Italian fragrance. So you know how the Italians love that heavy, citrusy, in-your-face opening, and there is a lot of that in here. There's tangerine, there's bergamot, and there's lemon, and it really lasts. Like it, you know, I don't know if it's just the freshness of the juniper and petit grain in the heart kind of coming through, but to me, really, really lasts. And the citrus notes really carry, you know, really take you down into the mid in the base of this fragrance. You get lavender, cardamom, petit grain, jasmine, iris and leather combination. One of my favorite combinations in perfume. It's here. Moss, fir, leather, cedar, musk, sandalwood, and vetiver. It's so classy. I wore this to work the other day. Freaking fantastic for the office because it's you know, very traditional, almost like a leathery fougere. Excuse me, almost like a leathery fougere, but it stays so masculine. And no one's wearing stuff like this. I mean, you just blow everyone out of the water wearing this, while they're wearing amber wood extreme this and that, and you just walk in smelling like a boss, I just think about it as differentiating yourself at the office. Like you walk in wearing Gianfranco Ferre 4-man or some of these vintages, they're gonna know that you've arrived. The boss has arrived. Everyone sit down, shut the fuck up. Okay, next on the list, it's going to be Robert Piguet's Bandit. And I've got a backup of this. Thank you to Anuj. This is one of the greatest leathers ever, I think. This is my splash bottle. I also have a spray that Anuj found me. But I think that if you're a leather lover, this is a must. No questions asked. You have to have a vintage bottle of Bandit because it's a reference. To me, it's a reference leather. And you can see kind of the short ingredient list right there. Alcohol and fragrance. And made in France for Alphin Inc. Interestingly enough. This is discontinued, by the way. This version. I think they've re-released this multiple times. I have no clue what the newest version is or what it's like, though. But if you can find one of these older Eau de Toilette bottles with the short ingredient list, I can vouch for it. I can absolutely vouch for it. It's aldehydic, and it opens up dark. It's just a punch in the face. I can't believe this was marketed for women. It's like, it's one of the most butch, masculine leathers I've ever smelled. It opens up very dark green, deep, but also aldehydic and leathery and smoky. There's civet and castoreum in this that mixes with the leather, but it's also resinous. There's like, you know, myrrh and ambers in the base, and there's a beautiful floral heart. But just like when you smell Fahrenheit, you get the leather and you get the gasoline, right? There's a huge floral heart in Fahrenheit. Most people don't realize that. There's a huge floral heart in Bandit. Carnation, jasmine, rose, violet, gardenia, ylang ylang, neroli. You won't smell hardly any of them. You're going to smell leather. Butch, violety leather. And I absolutely love it. And earthy vetiver, you know, oodles of oak moss in here. One of my favorite leathers to wear. I love wearing Bandit. Bandit is like Bandit is a flamethrower. It's a flamethrower for me. The reactions from wearing Bandit are classic, but I love it. I don't care. It came out in 1944. I would love to smell more Robert Piguet's. They have an incense fragrance called Casbah, which I've been looking for a vintage bottle for a while now, but that's hands down got to be my favorite Robert Piguet fragrance. Okay, now this one's a little bit of a weird one because this is Basile Uomo, but this is actually not the box my bottle came in. This box was sent to me by Anuj, and he sent this to me whenever he was sending me a haul and had like a tester that didn't have a box. So he included it in this ethyl alcohol, Basile fragrance, and distilled water. Important that it's distilled. And so what I did is I just took mine and I put it in there. But my Basile Uomo is Waruska and Joel distributed. And you can see the short ingredient list on mine. Alcohol, denat, agua, parfum, BHT. So the ingredient list is a little bit different. The distributor is a little bit different. But I would say don't worry about any of that. If you can find one like mine with the shorter ingredient list, if you can find one like this that's marketed by, we'll call this Sirpea, the Sirpea, go for whatever you can get. People even tell me that the new version of Basile Uomo is good as well. I've never smelled it, but this is like this spicy green chypre. But there's little hints here and there of things like you'll get kind of this Paco Rabanne Pour Homme reminder because of the way that the rosemary and the lavender is used on the top. But it does its own thing. There's clove and blackcurrant and galbanum and cinnamon and patchouli, and it's just a great vintage spicy green masculine. I'd highly recommend this. 1987, and almost no sweetness. There's also a little bit of a leathery touch in here. So I'm glad to have the box, even though it doesn't go with my bottle. It's the Sirpea version. I'm still glad to have it and be able to show you guys the presentation. Okay, next on the list is a box I don't think I've ever shown on the channel, and this is Caron Yatagan. Now, this is an older box, but I have an even older version of this that does not have a box. So I've got a tester from Anuj that's even older than this version, but there's no box. And you can see here kind of the ingredient list on the bottom. Alcohol, parfum, aqua, benzophenone 6, and 85 proof. So I don't know exactly when this one was made, but this is probably in the last 25 years, I would think. But the one I have from Anuj is even older. I think it's an 80s bottle. So here's the bottle, and you can kind of tell because of the color of the label. The newer Yatagans have, I think, a silver cap. It's got a silver hat, and it's got a white kind of sticker right here. And of course, if you have the box, it won't have the shorter ingredient list. Those are all tells. And this is probably one of my favorite fragrances from the 70s. Spicy, woody, leathery, pine needles, tarragon, galbanum, lavender, petitgrain, carnation, geranium, jasmine, patchouli, vetiver, labdanum, leather, oak moss, musk, styrax, amber, and the kicker is castoreum. One of my favorite castoreum fragrances. It can't compete with Antaeus, obviously. Antaeus is the king. Castoreum, as far as I'm concerned. But this is very, very good stuff. And it's very earthy, forest flory. You know, imagine you're walking through the forest and there's some leaves that haven't been disturbed for months, and that, wet, kind of moldy undergrowth is growing under those leaves, like they're acting like a blanket and just cooking all of the, funguses and the mosses underneath. And then you come along and kick those leaves away and it just kind of shoots up like a spore. That's the smell of Yatagan, and it's a beautiful name too, referencing kind of the saber. Beautiful presentation. One of Caron's best, in my opinion. Yatagan. Okay, next on the list, we have another fragrance which I've talked about on the channel, but I've never shown this box before. This is a really cool box too. This is from the house of Farina, and this is called Kolnisch Juchten. And look at that packaging. Stunning packaging. I love it. Farina Gegenuber. My German friends will really like seeing this. I love the presentation. I love it. I love this. This is awesome stuff. And you can see right there, one of the, I think that this is one of the quintessential leather fragrances ever released, ever. Like if you're someone that's going back through leather and you're learning about leather, or you're learning about the history of leather, look at the box. I have no clue when this is from, but I would guess it's pretty old. And there's the bottle, and every drop of this is precious juice. This is a, I think that this is one of the, I mean, you talk about smoky Russian leathers. You talk about like Russian leather as a category with that birch, that smoke, that Russian leather. They used a little bit of olibanum, musk, and costus, according to Fragrantica. I don't know if I necessarily trust Fragrantica, but God, what a fragrance this is. And apparently there's this bottle, and there's another bottle that's like darker looking, instead of clear see-through. It almost looks like it's a tinted dark glass. I don't know which one's earlier or later. I don't know if this is even still being made. I assume it is. I don't know what the new version's like. All I know is that I am in love with this scent, and I think it was a very important leather fragrance just for the fragrance industry. I don't even see like a note listing in here. Yeah, I don't see even an ingredient list. I have no clue how old this is, but if you're a leather fan and you love Russian leathers and you want one of the quintessential Russian leathers, Farina's Kolnisch Juchten has to be on the list. Okay, this is going to be a long video. Next on the list, we have a house that I have talked about before, and I actually just wore one of their fragrances as my scent of the day, and I talked about how great it is, and I think this is the best Aubusson fragrance, period. This is called Futuros. So, Futuros is very interesting. This is courtesy of Armando. Thank you, my friend. You can see the shorter ingredient list. Not super short, but shorter. And this came out in 1987, discontinued. And the best Aubusson fragrance as far as I'm concerned. There is a little bit of this, late 80s floral thing going on. And it is... Oh, shit. So, I would, this competes. Now, it's not head-to-head. It doesn't smell anything like this. But just imagine the fragrances of the late 80s that it was competing against, right? So it was competing against stuff like Daniel Hector's Character. Or it was competing against stuff like Furio by Jacques Bogart. Or it was competing against Tenere by Paco Rabanne, or Quitos, right? And those, in many of those late 80s masculine, you'll notice they kind of slyly amped up the florals. That kind of turned into a little bit of a trend in the late 80s. And you'll notice here, that the florals definitely seem turned up, but it's blended so beautifully with this green, piney, fir balsamy, pine needle thing, and this spicy leather in the base. It's a beautiful 80s fragrance. I am so stoked to have this. I loved every second of wearing it. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to start doing some full reviews on these fragrances, but I just need more time with it for a full review. But man, what a beautiful fragrance Futuros is, worthy of you know, of an 80s crown of the greatest fragrance from Aubusson as far as I'm concerned. Now, maybe the second greatest fragrance, and it only came out about 5 years later in 1992. This is Aubusson Homme. Now, this gets almost no love. People wrote this off for a long time. I can tell you this is a good perfume. If you like Jacques Bogart Witness, which also came out in the early 90s, if you like Balenciaga Pour Homme, many people ask me, Ramsey, is there a replacement for Balenciaga Pour Homme? And the answer is no. Nothing comes close to Balenciaga Pour Homme, but if you really twisted my arm, I would tell you, if you are a patient man or woman, if you have some patience, go with Aubusson Homme, because Aubusson Homme, even though it doesn't open up necessarily like Balenciaga Pour Homme, you will be reminded slightly, and remember, this is 1992, okay? So, and you can kind of see this almost like this muddy, you know, almost like Pueblo housing looking top here. Very interesting presentation by Aubusson. And so basically, it opens up very green. There's a lot of artemisia and aldehydes and basil. But as it dries, you get more of that cinnamony, slight leathery, oak mossy, you know, dry down that will remind you a little bit of Balenciaga Pour Homme. And I think it's the patchouli. I think it's the patchouli in the base that really, really finally seals the deal on that reminder as it dries down. But the first couple hours when you spray this, you're going to think I've lost my mind. You're going to say there's no comparison to Balenciaga Pour Homme. Let it dry, and into the dry down, that's where you'll kind of see the, I think the House of Aubusson kind of borrowed little bits and pieces from Balenciaga, because Balenciaga was the much bigger house. I think Aubusson kind of always played, they kind of always played third wheel, if you will, or fourth or fifth wheel even. And so I think they kind of took some cues from Balenciaga when Balenciaga Pour Homme came out. But this is a beautiful fragrance. And what I found is even those cheaper drugstore, less, you know, talked about vintage fragrances with the shorter ingredient lists, before really the fragrance industry kind of collapsed in on itself and went for reformulations to save money, or if for whatever you want to blame it on. Those are fantastic fragrances. They almost never let me down. Almost never. Case in point, blind bought this. Love it. So yes, and it is beautiful. It really is beautiful. I can see the Cano comparison, but I think it's a million times better than Cano. Okay, next on the list we have a Salvador Dali. And this is actually a Gerard Anthony as well. So we've got 3 Gerard Anthonys on this list now. Balenciaga Pour Homme, Cristobal Pour Homme, and now Leroy Soleil Homme. And look at Salvador Dali's artwork there with the sad sun. How beautiful. You know, many people associate, there's a whole thing you can kind of do some research on as far as like referencing the Christian calendar, let's say, with sun worship in the northern hemisphere, sorry. As long as you're in the northern hemisphere, you know, you can make some distinctions. And I was raised Christian, I was raised Catholic, so I'm open-minded enough that I can at least explore stuff like this. But it's very interesting when you think about how ancient man, let's say, needed the sun. And you know, if you start looking at things like Christmas and Jesus died on the cross, let's say, why was he dead for 3 days, you know, and then all of a sudden he's risen, let's say. You can equate that to, let's say, the sun moving throughout the sky and its place in the sky, how the days get shorter, how it gets longer. And so Easter also kind of coordinates with Passover, the day that the sun passes over the equator. And now we're going to have longer days, and you know, the ancient farmers that relied on the sun, this was kind of the good times for them, so they celebrated it with a celebration, whether you want to call it Passover or Easter or whatever it is. But it's a very interesting thing. Just seeing that sun kind of reminded me of that, since it's Easter today. But this is a short ingredient list, or it's an older, you can see copyright 1994. But this fragrance actually came out in 1990. Sorry, copyright, they were saying 1944 for Salvador Dali's artwork. This is a 1998 release, and I love these Salvador Dalis. This is one of my least favorite fragrances, though. It's probably my least favorite Gerard Anthony, but the flacon is fantastic. I mean, look at that. Just an absolute beautiful piece of art. The sad sun, good stuff. And this is, I think, kind of one of those issues where it's spicy, it's floral, it's musky. It was 1998, so remember, it was competing against aquatics. There is a slightly synthetic, fresh feel to this, even though it's not an aquatic fragrance, let's say. There's bergamot, grapefruit. You'll notice a lot of geranium, jasmine. My favorite part of this is the rosewood. It just kind of gets buried under this spicy, cedary, woody thing that doesn't smell so high quality. But there was also an extreme version of this that came out in 2012. I've never smelled the extreme version, but if you're into collecting Gerard Anthony's work and you get this for a song like I did, it might not be a bad buy. But it's not my favorite Gerard Anthony. But the presentation is fantastic. Okay, next, here's the ingredient list. It's right here on the side, so you can kind of see. Okay, next on the list is a Rochas, and this is called Moustache. Now, this is the Eau de Toilette Concentrée, and this is a Edmund Rudnitska. Rumor is his wife, Teresa Rudnitska, who was not a perfumer, but kind of helped him create this. That's the rumor. Now, Edmund Rudnitska was a hard man to work for, and apparently kind of ruthlessly mocked his wife for claiming that she deserves credit on creating this fragrance. In public, privately, you know, he was just a very tough guy in general. Just listen to how Pierre Bourdon kind of talks about how he was worried that Edmund Rudnitska would completely cut him off. He knew he was smoking, for example, and how he had to hide that and just stuff like that. Just great stories from the past. But this is kind of along the lines of that citrusy chypres. Okay, so that's what you need to think about when you think about Moustache, is think about citrusy chypres. But it's pissy. It's a little hard to wear. The civet in here is challenging, okay? I would almost say give me Koros over this, to be honest with you. Give me Koros over Moustache. Koros is more animalic to most, but I like Koros more. This DNA, this citrusy chypre DNA, if you will, is hard for me to wear. I've been hard on this DNA before. When you mention things like Chanel's Pour Monsieur or the EDT. I'm not talking about the EDP, but the EDT is a proper chypre. You know, Eau Sauvage by Dior, that kind of DNA, right? That's where this falls into. You've got the original Eau de Toilette, and you've got the Eau de Toilette Concentrée. And this is discontinued now, by the way. But just imagine that DNA, and imagine Edmund Rudnitska making it. If you smelled some of his work for things like, if you smelled Le Parfum de Thérèse for Frederic Malle, or if you smelled Ocean Rain by Mario Valentino, you'll know he's got this kind of DNA that can put some people off. He is a believer that you should be challenged with whenever you spray a fragrance initially, it should put you off. You should be challenged by it. And this does challenge people. It's a very old school DNA. I think it originally came out in the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I can find it. Moustache. The original Moustache came out in 1949 is when the original came out. I don't know when the Concentree version came out, but if you are a fan of that citrusy Chypre DNA, this is definitely one to put on the list. I will wear this and I will talk about it, but it's not my favorite style of fragrance, I can tell you that. The having any fragrance from the master, though, Edmund Runitska, as a collector, you can't pass that up. I mean, especially discontinued ones like this. I really feel like they should be in the collection for reference, even though it's not my favorite. Okay, so next on the list, we've got a Marbert, and this is actually my favorite Marbert fragrance, and it's Marbert Man. Now, this is the vintage Eau de Cologne. I've shown the Eau de Toilette previously, and I will do a comparison video between them, but look at that. Amazing. I love this stuff. And there's kind of the shorter ingredient list right there. Marbert, made in West Germany. Ah, the good old days, eh? Made in West Germany. So, Marbert Man, look at the color of that juice. Oh, this is everything I love in a fragrance. This is also done by a master, Raymond Chaillan. It's one of my favorite honey fragrances of all time. You know, I think I would put Hugo Boss #1 ahead of this because I like the way that pissy 80s honey is done. This is a 70s release, I believe. But there is this amazing mixture of, you know, this aromatic herbal lavender with this kind of easier to wear honey, I think. The honey comes off as a little fresher. Cartier tried to do a fresher honey with a fragrance called L'Envol Cartier, and it just comes across as slightly weird. There's like a violet leaf note in there with the honey, and it just comes across weird. This nails it. This is what a fresher honey should be. It's kind of leathery in the base, mossy, woody, spicy. There's mugwort, which makes it very masculine, that artemisia, green, lavender, herbal, but old school carnation and cinnamon and geranium just mixes with that honey, this fresher take on honey, but it's still animalic, still masculine, and there's a beautiful real ambergris note in the base of this that maybe is what makes it seem so fresh and sparkling. But man, this could be a signature scent for me. I'm so happy to have this bottle. They don't come up very often, these vintage Eau de Colognes for sale. So, and this also comes with a really cool book. Look at this. Fitness Guide by Marbert. This stuff was so cool. Look how they used to do it back in the day. Now, God forbid they have to spend 50 cents on printing an actual insert, right? They want to save the 50 cents. So yes, good stuff. Marbert Man Eau de Cologne. That's gonna make a great comparison video one day to the Eau de Toilette, which is also very good. I think the Eau de Toilette bottle that I have is about 20 years old or so, but it's still very, very good. Okay, staying with the house of Marbert, now we're gonna jump to Gentleman, and this is Gentleman by Marbert from 1986. This is the Eau de Toilette. This is the aftershave. Thanks to Anuj for including the aftershave in my purchase. How cool is that? And you can kind of see the back of the aftershave. And look at the back of the Eau de Toilette, though. Lovely. Made in West Germany again. Alcohol, SD alcohol 39C, Marbert Gentleman fragrance, purified water, benzophenone 2 and BHT, FD&C blue #1, D&C yellow #8, D&C red #33. So there is some dyes in there, but it's basically also, you could consider this kind of an amber fougere, I guess, but I would put this very close to, you know, if you like things like Koros, okay, those 80s, Civetti, animalic, musky. Imagine Koros meets Givenchy Gentleman, okay? All-time classics, right? 1986. And this is, whenever I wore this to work one day a couple months back, in winter, to be fair, but I did wear this to work, and I went with the aftershave. I shaved that day, and then I went with the eau de toilette. My God. I bet you everyone in the entire building smelled me, and I'm on the 4th floor. So it's galbanum, tarragon, artemisia, bergamot, Amalfi lemon, patchouli, rose, jasmine, vetiver, geranium, and Virginia cedar with civetta, French labdanum, olibanum, musk, oak moss, and leather. And it is a beast animalic. Oh, it's so fucking good, though. This might compete against Marbert Man for the crown of Marbert. I don't know. Definitely one of these two. Let's put it that way. I think this is actually my favorite. But man, this is a strong. This is Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan. Really good. Really good stuff. And it also comes with a book. Marbert Gentleman. Does it talk about the fragrance, curiously enough? There's a fitness rub. Wow. Unique masculine, the new ideal for lifestyle and excellence. Wow. Lifestyle and excellence, eh? How does this go? Never close these damn things right again. Okay. All right, go back to your home, buddy. Go back to your home, my friend. You get to live in your box for a little bit. Great fragrance. And shout out to Anuj for finding me these made in West Germany. Look at that. Copyright 1986. That's a beautiful thing. All right. Next on the list, we've got another very hard to find vintage discontinued fragrance that came years before Koros and Antaeus, but maybe even set the bar for the way that the 80s fragrances really kind of just took off in that animalic style. And this is Super Fragrance by Etienne Aigner. I've got another 15 ml bottle of this, but that's it. That's all I have. I would love to find a true like 50 or 100 ml of this one day because I love this stuff. It is, and you can see I only have a little bit left of mine. It is spicy, woody. Man, it's so musky though. Someone mentioned earlier that the musk in this is like turned up to an 11, which means everything else to compete with that musk had to also be at an 11. Tarragon, one of my favorite notes, is anisic, sweaty clary sage, musky, dark green galbanum. But it's also, even though there's this animalic bit, which they only list costus, but it smells like there's civet in here too, but they only list costus, and amber, vanilla, musk, tonka with a heart of jasmine, patchouli, sandalwood, cedarwood, and iris. And that iris mixing with that musky, let's say, animalic, costus, wet dog type feel. Man, it's so good. And this, I think this might have even set the bar for, you know, this might have been one of those fragrances that other fragrances that came out in my, you know, my favorite, let's say, fragrance years of, let's say, 80 and 81 looked at this. They looked at this, you know, as a reference. This came out in 1978, which, you know, Jonathan and I were talking about that, and he brought up a good point. 78 might be the only year that can compete with 81, because I think 81 is the best fragrance year. But when you think about things like Antaeus and Koros and Calvin Klein's Calvin came out in 81, I believe. You know, just some solid fragrances came out in 81. But 78 was no slouch at all. I mean, Super Fragrance, Lagerfeld, Cologne, you know, Dunhill's Blend 30. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. But Super Fragrance for Men is definitely one of those, you know, if you're looking for vintage fragrances that are a little off the beaten path, Super Fragrance needs to be on the list. Okay, next on the list is not really a unicorn, but more of a hidden gem. This is Andy Warhol Pour Homme. Look at this packaging. Look how cool this is. This is before Andy Warhol had a contract with Bond Number 9, because once they signed the Bond Number 9 contract to make those Warhols, which are now discontinued in unicorn status, I'd love to have the one that's on Armando's profile. Has been on my list forever. I just refuse to pay $1,000 to somebody or some crazy, you know, scalper price. But this is what they had before that. And this is a very interesting fragrance. Andy Warhol Pour Homme. And Andy Warhol Pour Homme came out in 1999. It's very interesting though. For $15, which is what I paid for this. I paid $15 for this 100 ml, because this is the kind of thing no one wants. No one talks about this. No one even probably knows it exists, right? It's kind of this green, slightly synthetic, maybe like hinting at this airy, ozonic type thing. Cardamom, tarragon, basil, jasmine, mock orange, cedarwood, moss, musk, and sandalwood. Dorothy Pio is the perfumer. For $15, a discontinued fragrance like this, I'll take this all day. Is it my favorite fragrance? No. But is it interesting? Yeah. I mean, if you were going to wear something to bed and you were like, do I want to wear Mont Blanc's, you know, do you want to wear something like Star Walker? Or you could easily reach for something like this. I mean, it's kind of this green, easier to wear, you know, musky, synthetic thing, but I like it. I'm glad to have it. I'll tell you that. It's a cool little piece. Don't go pay big money for it, though. It's not worth it. But if you can get it for a song like I did, go for it. Cool little box, too. All right, next on the list, we have a sleeper. No one talks about this one either. I think this is a drugstore fragrance. I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking it's a drugstore fragrance. It's called Bozzini. And Bozzini comes like this. Actually, I don't think there is even anything else other than this little sleeve that you open up and it comes out like this. Bozzini, you can see, is kind of imprinted on the little sleeve. And you open it up like this, and it's almost like one of those Rochas presentations. Like, look at this. So if you've seen these Rochas presentations, yeah, look like this. Where you open it up, and it kind of comes together, magnetic kind of box thing. This is a fragrance that really grew on me, by the way. Just talking out loud, but Rochas' little insane $3,500 a bottle shit really grew on me. I love it. I've grown to love it. I don't know if I loved it at first, but I've grown to love it. It's also a very temperamental fragrance. Changes a lot. But look at that. Look at the Bozzini box. Obviously not as posh as the Rochas box, but you kind of get the idea. Kind of cool for an 80s drugstore scent, right? And so if you flip it over on the back, you can see the ingredient list. Actually imprinted in it. Ethyl alcohol, demineralized water. It's always important to emphasize the demineralized aspect of it. Fragrance, and that's it. And made in Italy. Intercosma West SPA. So they put this out, and so here it is. Kind of just sits in there like that. Kind of cool. So here's the fragrance. And there's very little written about this anywhere. There's no note listing that I've been able to find. It's got this built-in little atomizer. And I think this is a drugstore fragrance, is my guess. But it's a damn good drugstore fragrance. And that's what I was talking about. This came out sometime in the 80s. The only note listing, actually there is one, but it's on Fragrantica, but I don't trust it. It says green tea, blackcurrant, amber, and musk. Definitely get a little bit of this blackcurrant thing, but it almost feels like blackcurrant leaf. Like there's this pissy, musky, animalic Maybe even like a slight hint of Marbert Gentleman in there, this musky animalic thing going on. And, you know, it's just interesting though, whenever I wear stuff like this, right? Whenever I wear stuff like this, it always brings everything full circle. And I think about how is it possible that a drugstore fragrance that probably sold for $5 in the late 80s is better than the stuff the designers are pumping out for hundreds now? How is that possible? How is it I can blind buy something for $20 on eBay because no one talks about this? And all I did was just find some, you know, information on discontinued fragrances and blind bought it. And I'm like, every time I'm impressed. It almost never fails. Is it a little bit weird of a fragrance? Yes, it is. But I mean, this could easily be some niche fragrance some house sells for $300 today. Easy, no problems. The fruitiness and the muskiness is very interesting to me. There is also this leathery touch, which makes it, I guess that's why I really like it, is this leathery touch really makes this fragrance. So is it a Roja? No, it's not. Roja, it is not. But I think the presentation is kind of cool. And if you like stuff like that, again, that's just off the beaten path and weird, definitely one to put on the radar. Bozzini for men. No one's talking about that one, I'll tell you that. Cool little presentation. Okay, next on the list we have a YSL, and this is Opium pour Homme. So Opium pour Homme, you can see mine is not necessarily the newest, but not the oldest either, I don't think. And so Opium pour Homme is spicy oriental, basically created by Jacques Cavalier. It's blackcurrant and star anise, so 2 blackcurrant fragrances back to back, with a little bit of licorice and pepper, with bourbon, vanilla, tolu balsam, and atlas cedar. And I really like the, it feels very modern, even though it's in the mid-90s this came out. It feels very modern. This is the Eau de Toilette, and I have a Eau de Parfum version at some point coming, hopefully soon, from the middle of Poland, not the deepest parts of Poland, but the middle of Poland. So I'm excited to do a comparison video, but that's a, and I think the EDT has a little bit of freshness that this could be worn year round. I don't think this is a winter fragrance or anything like that. I think there's enough, who made this one? Ah, it is, it's a Parfums Corp. How about that? So it is a little bit older. It's older than I thought anyways. Parfums Corp. Okay, good stuff. I actually spilled some of this. Doing a video for you guys too. I was putting it away and I spilled a little bit of it. Like it tipped over and some fell before I could save it. But at least I still have what I have. So I'm lucky to have it. Good stuff. Now it's marketed by L'Oreal, which God knows what you're going to get there. Okay, next on the list we have one of the best 80s, I would say, you know, floral, fruity, animalic chypres I've come across, and the oldest, okay, the oldest Maurice Roussel fragrance I've ever come across. And they tried to re-release this in 2012 with a new design and a new scent and all that, and I wouldn't go there. Go for the vintage if you can. I think Anouge still has bottles from Enchanté Perfumes, but this is Quai de Crizia. Look at this. Crizia never lets me down, man. I have never, they're kind of like the House of Jill Sander, in that I've never bought a Crizia fragrance and been disappointed, ever. Everything they do is stunning. This is the version from 1980, and this is the Eau de Toilette. So this is the Eau de Toilette, 50 ml, and I will tell you that the Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum, so good. As a chypre lover, it's so good. The Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum really feel like, so here's the Eau de Parfum in the 100 ml. The Eau de Toilette and Eau de Parfum really feel like you're smelling a proper eau de toilette, eau de parfum combination. Because you know how some houses nowadays, the eau de parfum is like a completely different fragrance. Here, they both smell very, very similar. And you can kind of see how they used to do it back in the day. They would stamp the batch code on there. But the eau de parfum, eau de toilette combination in this, just the eau de parfum just feels like kind of a heavier, you know, a heavier version of the same fragrance, which is how an eau de toilette, eau de parfum concentration should be, actually. I don't think the note listing is one bit different. It's still this floral, spicy, green, animalic chypre. And what's interesting is, so the note listings are aldehydes, hyacinth, bergamot, neroli, and peach, with lily of the valley and orange blossom, carnation. I think there is a difference in the note listing, though. Let me take a look. Contains SD alcohol, 39C, K-Decryzia fragrance and purified water. Contains ethyl alcohol, K-Decryzia fragrance, purified water. That's interesting. I don't think that means anything, but I've never noticed that before. Both made in Italy, both FPD, P, Spa, Parma. And the base is civet, moss, musk, ambergris, leather, sandalwood, styrax, and vanilla. And it feels like you're smelling high quality ingredients. Everything in here feels like it's of the highest quality. The iris in here smells amazing. But what really got me the first time I got a chance to wear this is the musk that's used in this almost feels like you're smelling a precursor to the Maurice Roussel musks that you get decades later. And it's just a very interesting kind of experiment to play with stuff like this from the past. And just because it's marketed towards women, don't let that put you off at all. It's a beautiful, fantastic fragrance. Okay, next on the list we have an Amouage, and this is Amouage Silver Crystal Man. Look at how beautiful. I mean, to me, one of the most beautiful packagings ever. And you can see kind of the short ingredient list right here. SD alcohol 39C. I'm not even going to try that. Water and fragrance. Produced and packaged by Amouage LLC. And so this you've seen before, because I know I've shown it before. I've shown you guys this right here, which sits inside of the box. But what I almost never show you guys is someone used to sign a little card that goes inside of these old Amouages. Khalid? I don't know what that says. I don't know who that is, but whoever it is, thank you. Sales at amouage.com. I wonder if that goes straight to the Fishman now. Silver crystal, look at that. Inspired by the legend of Oman's ancient craft of silver working, Amouage is proud to present its latest fragrance, Silver Crystal, with top notes of ylang-ylang from the Comores, interwoven with the captivating floral notes of rose from Morocco, middle notes of rich, warm eastern spices with undercurrents of clove bud from Madagascar, and warmed by touches of jasmine from Egypt. Undertones of frankincense mingling with precious woods such as sandalwood, cedarwood, and gaiac wood from Paraguay. Silver Crystal is available in the same sumptuously ornate, finest lead crystal containers as Amouage Crystal and Gold, but exquisitely decorated with silver to complement the brilliant, new, vibrant fragrances they contain. Wow. Beautiful. Fantastic stuff. Now that's a blurb. And that's a picture. Look at, man, I'd love to have one of these old gold for women. That is one of the most beautiful bottles I think I've ever seen. Russian Adam has one. Shout out to him. Shout out to Russian Adam. Okay, 3 left. And we're getting 2 of my favorite fragrances. and one of my favorite boxes. We'll save one of my favorite boxes of all time coming up. But this is Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme, the 1994 version with the plush suede almost feel. Velvety suede, we'll say. The 1994 version of Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme is, I had to tape the sticker back because it kept falling off. But the one that's made by Euro Italia, oh, so good. If you want to wear like a tobacco, lavender, tobacco, sage, tarragon, cardamom, bergamot, mandarin orange, tobacco, cedarwood, sandalwood, tonka, and iris, and that iris is the kind of hidden. It's the hidden treasure in Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme. That iris, tobacco, lavender, peppery, spicy thing. It's so posh. I think this is so posh. And I like wearing this in the heat. So yes, Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme deserves much love. Especially the 1994 version. I don't know if I would go for anything else, to be honest with you. I would maybe just skip the fragrance. If you had to buy the newer ones, I might just skip it. Try to find a vintage of this one. And you can see even the really older bottles that are, Euro Italia, don't have the true short ingredient list on them. At least mine doesn't. So they made this for a while. But yes, Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme from 1994. Fantastic. Okay, 2 left. Next on the list is a fragrance I do not have a note listing for, but it is, I think, one of the best discontinued 80s scents that gets no love in the community because it's impossible to find. Again, there's been a couple people that talk about it, but it deserves much more love. This is Bali Masculine. I think this is the first time I've ever shown this box. Look at this presentation. Absolutely stunning. Alcohol, fragrance, and water, bitches. Made in Switzerland. This is Bali Masculine of Switzerland. And, man, doesn't that just remind you of like an 80s tie? I swear my old man had a Pierre Cardin tie that looked like that. And the bottle is equally as cool, as is the little insert. Let me tell you about the little insert. So it says, Bali. Look at this. Awesome. Bali, known all over the world for its footwear and accessories, is now adding to its range a new line of perfumery products for men. A new delightful perfume has been created, modern, close to nature, very personal, and a pleasure to use throughout the day. The name Bali, and now Bali Masculine, means fashion, style, and international fragrance. Not the best blurb, but I've seen worse. And you can kind of see the Bali Masculine logo there. Very cool stuff. So this fragrance has one of the coolest bottles, I think, of all time. It's almost this granite bottle. It's glass, obviously, but they made it look like granite. And this is a leathery fougere, is basically what it is. Oh, I wish you guys could smell this. I mean, you can't recreate this today, I don't think. Whatever they used in here, highest quality ingredients. Everything seems top notch. It seems like a aromatic fougere, but with these leathery touches. So when you first spray, it almost comes across as having this leathery, smoky, almost Bel Ami-like leather, right, from the 80s. But it dries down to this fougere, geranium, coumarin, probably some sort of beautiful sandalwood. It's fantastic, posh, classic. This is classic masculine, dressed to the nines. You're not wearing something totally outrageous, but it's got that 80s oak mossy, masculine hum to it. So yes, Bali Masculine is definitely a wreck. And finally, I set this aside for last because this is one of the coolest boxes I've ever seen. Even Anuj, mention when I bought this, dude, this is the craziest box because it looks like a game of asteroids. This is Bateau Ivory from the house of Thomas Lawrence Petty. And look at the asteroid kind of shooting through that star nursery right there. How cool is that? That is one of the most outrageous boxes. 80 proof, 25 mil. And there is the short ingredient list. It looks like you're on like an Atari console or something, right? SD alcohol 39C, fragrance and water. And copyright 1986. This reminds me of like Spaceballs, the star system in the background. Spaceballs, the lunchbox. Spaceballs, the coloring book. Spaceballs, the breakfast cereal. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. Spaceballs, the fragrance. The kids love this one. Bateau Ivory. Okay, so this is, I have no clue what it is. It's like this musky, I don't know what the note listing is, but my guess is it's like this musky, animalic. 1975 this came out. Which is interesting that my bottle says 1986. So I wonder how, I mean, obviously this must have done well enough to hang around for at least a decade. Bateau Ivory, slightly green, slightly musky, but a little bit of that 70s, 80s animalics to it too. I will try to review this one day, but I'm going to have to wear it more and get to know it more. But that is on nobody's radar. There's no note listing. There's really nothing about it. There's nothing I can tell you about it, other than I just have to wear it more. But Bateau Ivory, yes, fantastic box. One of the best presentations. It's just, I love this. There's a little sticker on the back too. Look at that. You guys make that out. Exclusively distributed. Keys Import Inc. Toronto. Good stuff. Well, I hope everyone has a great Easter. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it went over an hour. Thanks for watching. Give it a like and a subscription if you enjoyed this, even though I need to work on, I'm trying to say that more. I want to bring more people into the fold. The bigger we grow, I won't say any names, but I will say this. I saw a message from one of the biggest, I would say, channels as far as maybe like subscribers go, right? I don't trust the guy as far as I can throw him. But I saw a message from him to Anuj asking about vintage fragrances. So the little community that we have is growing, even to the point where the bigger channels are starting to get in on the fun. So I think we're really laying the groundwork for something special. You know, this is always going to be a channel for fragrance lovers, fragrance content. I'm not going to ever turn this into Jerry Springer or, you know, Maury or Ricky Lake or anything like that. We're not going to do the drama. We're not going to do the you know, fragrance community in shock. This is a channel for fragrance content, and you know, I want to keep it that way, but I want more people to join, and that comes from you know, doing the thumbs ups and subscribing and leaving comments and all that stuff. So I very much appreciate everyone who's supported me over the last year and a half. Thank you very much. I think we've got big things coming in the future. So do leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite presentations are. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a happy Easter. Cheers, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.